Hello, my name is Stephen Cook, and I'm in James Smith's Oral Communication class 1013-02, and this is my oral presentation number 3. I'd like to talk to you about, is it ethical for someone with mental disability to be denied an organ transplant? Late last year, a 3-year-old toddler, Chrissy Rivera, was denied a liver transplant based on the diagnosis that she was mentally retarded. Earlier this year, in 2012, a gentleman, Paul Corby, a 23-year-old with autism, also a mental retardation diagnosis, was denied a heart transplant based on being mentally retarded. I find this to be offensive, being a Special Olympics coach for almost 10 years, and the step-parent of a individual with Down syndrome for almost 12 years. This is, it's offensive to me. On the flip side, there was a gentleman, Horatio Alberto Reyes Carmaria, in Oregon, that is a convicted felon, double homicide murderer on death row, whose doctor, who is in need of a heart transplant, was placed on the organ donor list because the doctor felt he was a good candidate. By being incarcerated, no access to illegal drugs or alcohol made him a good candidate for organ transplantation. In California, another inmate received a heart transplant. It cost the taxpayers in California over $1 million for this individual's heart transplant. These are all based on a 1976 ruling that of cruel and unusual punishment for prisoners not being allowed the same medical care as everybody else. However, the prison inmates do get better health care than low-income families, and have the opportunity to be placed on an organ donor list when individuals with mental retardation are not. I don't feel this is ethical. A study was done by Professor Steve Weiss and along with Marilee Martin, who did a survey on mental retarded patients who had received organ transplants. And in their study, they found out that after 1 year, the survival rate was over 100%, and over a 3-year period, transplanted patients with mental retardation, the survival rate was 90%. It's above the national average. So to say that someone with mental retardation is not a good candidate for organ transplant is not true. So the ethical question is, shall we deny organ transplants for someone with mental retardation while granting organ transplants to prisoners and inmates that are, that have, caused harm to the public at large and are, while being in prison, they can receive an organ transplant. Horatio Alberto Reyes, the double homicide convicted felon, was even interviewed, and in his interview he said, sometimes it's better being in here than outside. In other words, he had more of a chance of receiving an organ transplant by being an inmate than if he was not in prison. And I just feel that this is an ethical question that needs to be addressed. Should someone with mental retardation be discriminated against when someone who is a convicted felon be treated differently? It's almost as if we're saying that the mentally retarded have a less quality of life than someone that's in prison. Someone that's facing the death penalty. Is that a quality of life? That's a point that you need to ponder. Thank you.